What's up, humans, and welcome to a new Psicoactivo. Happy Friday, everybody. Friday the 13th. Before I continue, I just want to let you know that if you like the content you see, I'm going to ask you to please like, share, hype, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. That's all you need to do in order to help us, really, but it is what helps us the most. However, if you want to help out the channel in other ways, we have links down there you can choose from. You can become a member on YouTube or on Patreon. If you want merch and no ads, I think Patreon is the way. This is the only ad you get on Patreon. You can also choose to give us a review on Spotify because we were just accepted to the partner program and we can really use your help to keep growing. You can also go to the main channel if you're new. And I got about 850 episodes that you can go through. I would really appreciate doing any of those things. Whatever you choose to do is always appreciated. So thank you. Later today, I'm going to go to just hang out with the wife. It's going to be fun. But before that, I want to show you a couple of things. The first one is that this is not really my area of expertise. I've always been curious to see whether Atlantis is real or not. There are a lot of opinions about Atlantis from people from mainstream archaeology who claim that it's just a fable, it's just a story, to those who think that there are more than one Atlantis. And the location of this mythical place has been debated throughout history. There was one image that really stayed with me for a while since I saw it in the early 2000s. And it's an image that it's pretty clear that it's like a computer generated image. But that doesn't mean that it's not a real thing, because I'm going to take you through a story that connects to the Epstein files that has to do with both Atlantis and non-human intelligence. And it was only a matter of time before something like this appeared on the Epstein files, and we finally got something. And it connects with the work that two people have done. I think there are more people than those two, but these are the two that I know have been doing this work. First, I'm going to mention Dark Journalist, who has been doing the work of Ghislaine Maxwell's company, Terramar, and they claim that they were obsessed with Atlantis, with finding Atlantis. And then there's also Jason Giorgiani, who also more recently, did a whole series on that on his Substack, I believe. And now we seem to have at least intention of these people to find such a place. And there was this image that started circulating in the early 2000s. I don't know if you guys remember this one, but it's always been a topic of fascination for me because the Bermuda Triangle is in that area of the Caribbean, right? And there's always been stories that there is some sort of electromagnetic disturbance there that has caused for many planes to fall and people to get lost and stuff like that, right? And this image came out back in the early 2000s. It was in 2001 by a lady named Pauline Salitsky. She's a marine engineer, and her husband, Paul Weisweg. They owned a company called Advanced Digital Communications, ADC, and that image is a computer recreation of another image that came from a sonar when they were doing expeditions in that place. This is the image that a lot of people have been trying to sell you as the original one. That is not the original image. This is the original image. And this is a recreation of that image, according to what was seen in this image. But you can see that's the level of technology that was out in the open from those times. I know that LiDAR has become much better and there are much more defined images with LiDAR, but this is the real image. However, this does not mean that this is not down there, because there are definitely objects that are massive that were caught by the radar that are down there. So this reimagination, even though it's not accurate at all, I don't fault it really, because we know that there's a lot of structure, for example, in the Amazon that hasn't been discovered and may never be discovered because that jungle swallows everything it encounters. That's how it goes. That's how nature works. But I am going to read something from Jason Wild, who I'm currently talking to him so he can be part of the show at a certain point. my guest on Psicoactivo. He does a lot of great posts on X. And fun fact, he is the long relative of Oscar Wilde, the writer. We just confirmed that like a few weeks ago. He is. He does a lot of great posts about non-human intelligence, ancient civilizations, esotericism, a lot. And a lot of it's very interesting. A lot of it I really don't agree with, but this one is an interesting post that can further like probably explain where his mind is at, where with all of this pyramid stuff in the Caribbean. So here it is. Again, this is Jason Wild. In 2001, something amazing was discovered and then buried under blackout. Off the coast of Cuba, a team of ocean researchers led by engineer Polina Slitsky used sonar to scan the seafloor near the Yucatan Channel. What they found was not natural. Massive geometrically shaped structures, 2,000 feet underwater, like super deep enough to suggest they'd been submerged for at least 10,000 to 12,000 years. Massive pyramids, circular platforms, and road like grids that looked deliberate. Selitsky herself described the layout as symmetrical and unmistakably artificial. If that's true, it would predate every known civilization on Earth, even Göbekli Tepe. Listening yet? It was reported by mainstream outlets at the time, but soon after the initial feed, the story went dark. Plans to investigate with submersible ROVs were announced and then disappeared. No high-res images were released, no major follow-ups, just silence. Why? Because if those structures are real and man-made, then the entire narrative of human history has to shift. It would mean civilization began long before Sumer, Egypt, or the Indus Valley, and that an advanced coastal society was wiped out by the catastrophic sea level rise at the end of the last ice age, which is what I suspect, says Jason. Now connect the dots for yourself. Nearly every ancient culture has a flood myth. Mesoamerica's Aslan, the Sumerian flood, Atlantis, Manu in India. What if those weren't allegories? Which I don't think they are. Dryas impact hypothesis, a widely studied theory now that most have heard of, and it's hard to argue. They suggest that a comet or meteor struck Earth, Greenland, around 12,800 years ago, causing a sudden global melt and ocean rise. Coastal civilizations would have been the first to vanish, leaving behind oral stories, mysterious ruins, and underwater sites like the one off Cuba. This isn't the only one. It kind of complements the others, like Bimini Road, which Randall Carlson and Graham Hancock talked about a lot, Yonaguni off Japan, and submerged ruins of India Gulf and Cambay, all suggesting advanced societies existed before history officially began. And guess what? They wrote about them in all the ancient texts. The pieces were there. But academia still clings to the narrative that civilization suddenly popped up 6,000 years ago like magic. It didn't. It survived something. And what we're seeing are the ruins of survivors. I believe this underwater city is real, and I believe it's part of a forgotten global civilization that was erased by cataclysm, not time. The evidence isn't missing, it's just underwater, inconvenient, and ignored. But the story is still there, waiting for someone to dig deeper, because once we acknowledge that this civilization existed, we start asking the real questions. Who were they? What did they know? And how much of their world still lives in the myths we've mistaken for fiction? Lots and lots and lots. And none of these images are the real one. The real one is the one that I showed you before, which is this one right here. So, why am I talking to you now? And why did I mention the Epstein files? Well, this file that I'm about to show you, this one is a released 2004 email chain shows Ted Waite, billionaire Gateway Computers founder, and Ghislaine Maxwell's then boyfriend forwarding a report from National Geographic EVP Terry Garcia about mysterious underwater megalithic structures off Cuba's coast. The Cuban geologists' report describes structures with bedrooms and running areas that could have been adapted for intelligent beings and included images of what appeared to be a square stone object and something resembling a pyramid. The Epstein Circle wasn't just trafficking in finance, they were apparently funding and exploring underwater ruins of Cuba through National Geographic connections. And I'm going to leave a link in the description for this document and I'm going to read it to you so you can see what this is about. So, from John Hubish to Ted Waite. Remind you of the emeralds, says Ted. Maybe they are related. Cortez is involved. Let me know what you think. Cortez is in Hernan Cortez. Could that be? I don't know. But it says from John to Ted. Here's a translation of the document that Terry sent, which is in Spanish. His document also contains two photos. Quote, conclusion of the hypothesis 2 is undeniable that some structural bosses and remote structures that are found in the mega, as in the site, I guess, they could suggest some people that such elements could have been built for intelligent beings with even unknown objectives. Nevertheless, it is necessary to obtain more data before being able to do interpretations, more insurances of the nature of the objects observed to the present. This hypothesis assumes that said structures were built in land sign. To be valid, such possibility then signifies that mega had to be emerged in the past and turns out to be crucial to determine when mega submerged in the sea to establish the antiquity of the culture hypothetically related to these structures. The certain thing is that convincing and more precise data are needed to accept this hypothesis. And then, third hypothesis are natural megalithic structures that eventually were utilized by intelligent beings. This hypothesis is a combination of the two previous. It suggests that mega is a natural structure that in past time could be emerged, and that given its geometric characteristics with aspect of rooms and running, could have been adapted for intelligent beings for its use with some housing or mystical purpose. Thus, the coexistence of evidently natural structures would be explained linked to geological failures and displacements of blocks in the Strait of Yucatan, and certain very particular megalithic remote formations that could suggest a cultural utilization. Now, tests validated of these hypotheses. To clarify, validated of the relative hypothesis at origin of the structures of the region of Mega is necessary to carry out more detailed investigations with the following objectives. Number one, determining if the zone of Mega was emerged in the past, and if was it, when sank in the sea. Two, cartography in greater detail, the region of Mega and its outskirts, to determine its dimensions and details of its structure interior. Number three, determining the composition, origin, and antiquity of the megaliths. Number four, determining the origin of the curious structures in cross, diamond shaped, etc. Conclusions, the mega underwater structures situated at WNW of the tip of San Antonio, they constitute a challenge for the science. Only more detailed investigations will give us answer to questioning of their composition, dimensions, origin, and possible cultural utilization. And this was sent from Havana. The broken English is because I guess the person speaks Spanish as their mother language, I guess. I don't know. But the dude from National Geographic is mentioned, Terry Garcia. He says, John, attached is a report of a Cuban geologist on the so-called mega site. Two images from the site are included. They are poor quality, but clearly show a square stone object as well as something resembling a pyramid. Scale is impossible to determine from these images. Terry Garcia. So I'm guessing this is the image that he's talking about. This potentially ties that interest that dark journalist and Jason Giorgiani have been talking about from Ghislaine Maxwell, this company, Terramar, which wasn't a protect oceans type of a company, on paper, but according to the work of these two guys, this was part of the obsession that a lot of these people had with finding Atlantis. So I don't know what to think of this. I want to hear your thoughts on this. What do you think about the file? What do you think about this picture that came out back in 2004? That was 3 years after the file that was shown. And what do you think Atlantis was? I know this is not my area of expertise, but I'm very curious. I've always been curious about this story and to see what potentially could be there, like right in the Caribbean seafloor. That's interesting. Let me know what you think. Do you think it was just an allegory? I'll be reading. That's it for me today on this video, but I'll see you guys in the next one. Remember, stay curious and inquisitive like Jason Wilde. Always. Bye.